Ladies and gentlemen, life was never designed to give you what you want, it gives you what you demand. Every great person you admire today, whether in business, leadership, or faith, became great not because they waited for an opportunity, but because they took a chance. You will never discover the fullness of your potential until you step out in faith. The graveyard is filled with books never written, businesses never started, ideas never explored. Why? Because too many people were afraid to take a chance. They waited for the perfect time, the perfect conditions, the perfect resources, but perfection never came. Life rewards those who take action, not those who wait. Too many people sit on the sidelines of life, waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect opportunity, the perfect conditions, but perfection never comes. They say, one day I'll start that business. One day I'll write that book. One day I'll step out in faith. But the truth is, one day never shows up. The people who succeed, who make an impact, who fulfill their purpose are not those who wait, they are those who move. Opportunity is not something that falls into your lap. It is something you create. There are people today walking in success not because they were the smartest, not because they were the most talented, but because they decided to act. They took a chance. They refused to sit and watch life pass them by. Some of them started with nothing, no resources, no experience, no guarantees, but they stepped out. And as they moved, doors began to open. Every great person in history had to take a step before they saw results. Abraham had to leave his father's house without a map. Moses had to confront Pharaoh without an army. David had to step onto the battlefield before he saw Goliath fall. They didn't wait for perfect conditions, they acted on faith. What if they had waited? What if they had delayed, looking for a safer route, a clearer sign, a more comfortable situation? They would have missed their moment. Many people live their entire lives full of potential, but never produce anything. They die with dreams still inside them, visions they never pursued, gifts they never used. Not because they weren't capable, not because they weren't called, but because they never took action. The cemetery is full of books never written, businesses never launched, inventions never developed, and songs never sung, not because God didn't give people the ability, but because fear kept them stuck in a place of hesitation. You see, fear is the greatest thief of destiny. It whispers lies. What if you fail? What if you're not good enough? What if people laugh at you? But let me ask you, what if you succeed? What if your step of faith changes lives? What if your obedience to move opens the door for others? The question is never whether you will feel fear. The question is whether you will let fear stop you. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is not fear, it's movement. Some of the greatest leaders in the world felt fear but acted anyway. They started before they were ready. They spoke before they had the perfect words. They moved before they had all the answers. And because they moved, things began to shift. The moment you take action, heaven responds. The moment you step forward, the resources you need start looking for you. You don't need everything to be in place before you take a chance. You don't need all the money, all the connections, all the knowledge. What you need is the courage to start. The tree doesn't begin as a mighty oak. It starts as a small seed planted in the ground. That seed takes a risk. It pushes through the soil, not knowing what's above, but trusting that there's something greater. Some of you have been waiting for too long. You've been holding on to a vision, a dream, an idea that God placed in your heart, but you've been afraid to step out. You've been waiting for someone to confirm it, waiting for a sign, waiting for the perfect conditions. But faith doesn't wait, faith moves. And as you move, what you need will begin to align. God did not create you to sit on the sidelines of life. He placed something inside of you that the world needs. There are people waiting for what you carry, waiting for the business you're afraid to start, the book you're afraid to write, the message you're afraid to share. Their breakthrough is connected to your obedience to move. So what are you waiting for? The future does not belong to those who sit and watch. The future belongs to those who act. It's time. Take the step. Take the chance. Your potential is unlocked through risk and faith. Every person is born with gifts, talents, and abilities, but potential means nothing if it is never activated. Too many people go through life knowing they have something inside them, an idea, a dream, a vision, but they never take the risk to step out. They wait for certainty, for guarantees, for a safe path before they move. But life does not reward hesitation. It rewards those who dare to believe in what they carry. Potential is like a seed. A seed may have the capacity to grow into a mighty tree, But if it remains in the packet, if it is never put in the soil, it will never produce anything. The seed must take a risk. It must leave the safety of the packet and go into the unknown, buried in the darkness of the soil. It cannot see the sun. It cannot feel the rain immediately, but deep inside, something begins to grow. In the same way, your potential will never be realized until you step into the unknown, trusting that what is inside of you is enough. Fear is the greatest enemy of potential. It convinces people that they need to wait, that they need more qualifications, that they need more resources. But the truth is, you will never feel completely ready. You will never have all the answers. The people you admire, the leaders who inspire you, the pioneers who changed the world, none of them had guarantees. They simply believed in what they carried. They took a step of faith, and as they moved, their potential was revealed. Look at the stories of those who made history. Noah built an ark before rain had ever fallen from the sky. He had never seen a flood, yet he acted in faith. Joseph had a dream of greatness while he was still a prisoner. He had no visible evidence that his dream would come to pass, but he held on to it. David was anointed king while he was still a shepherd, tending sheep in the fields. He didn't look like a king. He didn't feel like a king, but the potential was already inside him. What unlocked their greatness? They took risks. They trusted what God placed inside them. They moved forward even when nothing made sense. Some of the most successful people in the world are not the most talented, not the most educated, not the most connected. They are simply the ones who took a chance on themselves. They were willing to fail, willing to look foolish, willing to step out when others hesitated. And because they stepped out, they discovered abilities they never knew they had. Potential is not revealed in comfort. It is only when you are stretched, when you are tested, when you are placed in unfamiliar situations that your true abilities emerge. A bird does not know the strength of its wings until it leaves the nest. A baby does not realize it can walk until it takes its first step. You will never know what you are capable of until you step out in faith. Some of you have been waiting for the right moment to pursue what is in your heart. You've been waiting for confirmation, for approval, for a sign, but deep down you already know what you need to do. You already feel the pull towards something greater. You already know that where you are right now is not where you are meant to stay. The dream inside you is not there by accident. It is an indicator of what is possible. It is proof that you were designed for more. But here is the truth. If you never take a risk, you will never see results. If you never move, you will never grow. If you never step out, you will never unlock the fullness of what is inside you. Playing it safe may feel comfortable, but comfort has never produced greatness. Every major breakthrough in history came because someone dared to believe that there was more. What have you been holding back? What vision have you been afraid to pursue? What idea have you been sitting on? You don't need all the answers. You just need to move. As you step out, your potential will begin to manifest. As you take action, doors will open. As you trust what God has placed inside you, you will discover a version of yourself you never knew existed. You were not created to live in fear. You were not designed to remain in the safety of the familiar. There is more inside you, but it can only be unlocked through action. It's time. Take the step. Take the risk. Take the chance. Fear keeps dreams buried. Courage brings them to life. Every person is born with something unique, an idea, a vision, a calling, but fear is the invisible chain that keeps many from ever walking in their purpose. Fear whispers, what if you fail? What if you're not good enough? What if people criticize you? And because of these thoughts, many people live their entire lives stuck in the same place, watching opportunities pass by, watching others succeed while they remain bound by hesitation. Fear has a way of paralyzing even the most gifted and talented people. It does not care how much potential you have. It only wants to keep you from using it. There are books that were never written, businesses that were never started, inventions that were never created, not because they weren't possible, but because someone allowed fear to convince them that they couldn't do it. The truth is, fear does not have to be real to be effective. It only has to be believed. If you believe the lie that you are not good enough, you will act like you are not good enough. If you believe the lie that you will fail, you will never try. If you believe that no one will support you, you will never step forward. But here's what you must understand. Fear is only powerful when you obey it. The moment you decide to move in spite of fear, its grip begins to break. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward even when fear is present. Every great leader, every history maker, every successful person has felt fear, but they acted anyway. They refused to let fear bury their dreams. Moses was afraid when God called him to lead Israel. He said, I can't speak well. He was focused on his weaknesses. But God did not ask him to be perfect. He asked him to obey. When David faced Goliath, fear was all around him. Soldiers were trembling, grown men were afraid, but David had courage. He stepped forward not because he had the best weapons, not because he had experience, but because he believed more in God's power than in Goliath's size. Esther risked her life to save her people. She had every reason to be afraid, but she made a decision. If I perish, I perish. And because of her courage, an entire nation was saved. Fear will always be present at the edge of greatness. It will always try to talk you out of your destiny. It will tell you that you're not qualified, that you don't have enough resources, that you should wait for a better time. But what if the right time is now? What if the opportunity you are waiting for is already in front of you? What if everything you need is already inside of you, waiting to be activated? The only way to find out is to step forward. Courage is a choice. You don't wait to feel brave before you move, and courage will meet you along the way. The greatest mistake you can make is to let fear keep you in the same place year after year, watching life pass by while you remain stuck in the cycle of hesitation. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is not talent, it's not intelligence, it's not even opportunity. It's courage. It's the ability to step out when others step back. It's the willingness to try even when there are no guarantees. It's the decision to move forward even when you don't feel ready. What dream have you buried because of fear? What opportunity have you delayed because you're waiting for the perfect moment? What idea have you been sitting on, afraid of what people will say? The only way to silence fear is through action. The more you move, the weaker fear becomes. The more you step out, the more confidence you gain. And soon, you will realize that fear was never as powerful as it seemed. The future belongs to those who are willing to take risks, those who are willing to bet on themselves, those who refuse to let fear decide their destiny. You were created for more, but you will never see it if you allow fear to hold you back. It's time. Step forward. Take the risk. Take the chance. God calls people out of comfort into purpose. No one fulfills their destiny by staying where it's safe. Every person who has ever done something significant had to leave behind what was familiar, what was predictable, and what was easy. Comfort is the enemy of growth. It makes you settle for less than what you were created for. It convinces you that where you are is good enough when deep inside you know there is more. Look at the pattern in Scripture. Every time God called someone to greatness, he first called them out of their comfort zone. Abraham was living in his father's house when God told him, leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. God didn't even tell him where he was going. He just told him to go. That is how God works. He doesn't always give you all the details up front. He just says move. And the moment you obey, the next step becomes clear. Moses was comfortable in the wilderness when God called him to deliver Israel. He had already escaped Egypt. He had a quiet life tending sheep. But then God interrupted his comfort with a burning bush. God said, I am sending you to Pharaoh. And what was Moses' response? Who am I that I should go? That's the same question many people ask when they feel called to something greater. Who am I to start this business? Who am I to lead? Who am I to step out? But here's the truth. God never calls the qualified, he qualifies the called. He is not looking for people who have everything figured out. He is looking for people who are willing to trust him to step out in faith even when they don't feel ready. The disciples were in the middle of a storm when Jesus came walking on water. Peter saw him and said, Lord, if you tell me to come to you on the water. And Jesus said one word, come. At that moment, Peter had a choice. He could have stayed in the boat where it was where it was predictable, where it was familiar. Or he could take a step into the unknown. And for a brief moment, as long as his eyes were on Jesus, he did the impossible. He walked on water. But what would have happened if he never took that first step? Some people never discover what they are capable of because they refuse to leave the boat. They stay in familiar places, surrounded by familiar people, doing familiar things, never realizing that comfort is costing them their calling. You cannot walk in your full potential while staying in a place of safety. Every great story of success, every testimony of breakthrough, every moment of transformation starts when someone dares to step out of what is comfortable and into what is unknown. God has a plan for your life, but that plan will never be found in a place of comfort. Purpose requires movement. It requires faith. It requires a willingness to let go of what is good in order to step into what is greater. Too many people pray for God to do something new in their lives, yet they refuse to move when He calls them forward. They want the miracle, but they don't want to leave the place they are in. But you cannot stay in the same place and expect different results. If you want to see something new, you must be willing to do something new. What have you been holding on to because it feels safe? What has God been nudging you to do, but you've been resisting because it feels uncomfortable? Maybe He's been telling you to start that business, to write that book, to step into leadership, to pursue that vision, but you've been waiting for a sign, waiting for confirmation, waiting for the perfect moment. But there is no perfect moment. There is only obedience. The longer you wait, the more time you waste. And the more time you waste, the more you delay the impact you were created to make. God is calling you higher, calling you deeper, calling you forward. But you cannot step into the future while holding on to the past. You cannot experience new levels of purpose while clinging to old levels of comfort. If you truly want to walk in the fullness of what He has for you, you must be willing to step out. It's time. Leave the boat. Leave the familiar. Leave the excuses. Take the step. Take the risk. Take the chance. You don't need all the answers. Just take the first step. Too many people delay their destiny because they are waiting for clarity before they move. They say, I'll start when I have everything figured out. I'll take action when I see the full plan. I'll step forward when I'm completely ready. But the truth is, you will never have all the answers. You will never feel fully prepared. There will never be a moment when everything makes perfect sense. At some point, you just have to trust that what is inside of you is enough and take the first step. God never gives the full picture in the beginning. He only gives instructions for the next step. When He called Abraham, He didn't give him a detailed map of the journey. He simply said, go to the land I will show you. Abraham had no idea where he was going. He only knew that staying where he was meant missing out on what God had planned for him. And because he moved, because he obeyed without all the answers, he became the father of many nations. When Moses stood before the Red Sea, he didn't know how the water would part. He had no idea how God would make a way. All he had was a staff and a word from God to move forward. Imagine if he had waited for a clear, logical explanation before stepping out. Israel would have remained trapped. But the moment he lifted his staff, the sea opened. The moment he took a step, the impossible became possible. This is how purpose works. You will never see the full path until you take the first step. Too many people spend their lives stuck in analysis, waiting for certainty, waiting for guarantees. But faith does not operate in certainty, it operates in trust. If you require proof before you move, you are not walking in faith, you are walking in fear disguised as logic. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in life come when you step forward not knowing exactly how things will work out. The business you want to start, the book you want to write, the vision you want to pursue, it will not come to life while you sit and wait. It will only come alive when you move. Every successful person you admire had to take action before they had it all figured out. They had to step into uncertainty before they saw results. They had to trust that as they moved, the right opportunities, the right resources, and the right connections would come. Imagine Peter when Jesus told him to step out of the boat and walk on water. Logic would have told him it was impossible. His mind would have screamed at him to stay where it was safe. But the moment he stepped out, he did something no other disciple experienced. He walked on water. Even though he sank later, he experienced what it was like to step into the miraculous something the others never did because they never left the boat. The lesson is simple. If you don't step out, you will never know what is possible. Some of you have been waiting too long. You've been praying for a sign, asking for confirmation, hoping for the perfect moment. But God is saying, move. Stop waiting for everything to be perfect. Stop waiting for the plan to be complete. Stop waiting for every door to open before you take a step. The doors will open as you walk. The resources will come as you move. The right people will show up along the way. But none of it will happen until you take action. Your dream, your vision, your calling will remain just an idea until you take that first step. Some of you have been afraid to start because you don't know how it will end. But here's the truth. You don't need to see the ending to begin. The only way to reach the destination is to start the journey. What have you been holding back on because you're waiting for more answers? What step have you delayed because you want everything to be clear before you move? It's time to stop waiting. It's time to trust what's inside you. It's time to take the first step. Move forward. Take the risk. Take the chance. Failure is not the end. It is part of the process. Too many people allow the fear of failure to keep them from ever starting. They hesitate, overthink, and delay their dreams because they are afraid of making mistakes. But failure is not something to be feared. It is something to be learned from. Every successful person, every leader, every world changer has experienced failure at some point. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is that successful people refuse to let failure stop them. Look at the stories of great men and women in history. Thomas Edison failed thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. If he had given up after the first failure, the second failure, or even the 100th failure, the world would still be in darkness. But he understood that every failure brought him closer to success. He once said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That is the mindset of a winner. In Scripture, we see the same principle. Moses failed when he tried to deliver Israel in his own strength, and he ended up fleeing to the wilderness for 40 years. But God still called him back. David failed when he sinned with Bathsheba, but he repented and became one of the greatest kings in history. Peter failed when he denied Jesus 3 times, but Jesus restored him and used him to build the early church. Failure did not disqualify them, it prepared them. It humbled them, strengthened them, and taught them lessons they could not have learned any other way. Too many people allow one failure to define them. They try something once, and when it doesn't work, they assume they are not good enough. They start a business, and when it doesn't take off immediately, they quit. They step out in faith, but when they face obstacles, they retreat. But here's what you must understand. Failure is not a stop sign. It is a lesson. It is teaching you what works and what doesn't. It is refining your approach. It is making you stronger, wiser, and more resilient. The process of growth requires failure. A child does not learn to walk without falling many times. No one expects a baby to take their first step perfectly. They stumble, they fall, but they get back up. And with every attempt, they get stronger until one day they are walking with confidence. Why is it that as adults we expect to succeed on the first try? Why do we fear falling when falling is part of the learning process? Some of the greatest breakthroughs in history were born from failure. The Wright brothers failed countless times before they figured out how to make a plane fly. If they had given up after the first failed attempt, air travel would not exist today. Walt Disney was told he lacked creativity. Steve Jobs was fired from the company he started. But these men refused to let failure define them. Instead, they used it as fuel to push forward. The danger is not in failing, the danger is in quitting. As long as you keep moving, as long as you keep trying, as long as you keep learning from your mistakes, you are still in the process of success. The only real failure is giving up. God does not expect perfection, He expects faithfulness. He is not looking for people who never make mistakes, He is looking for people who will keep going despite their mistakes. He is looking for those who will rise after falling, who will learn from their setbacks, and who will trust Him, even when things don't go as planned. Some of you have allowed failure to stop you. You started something, but when it didn't work the first time, you assumed it wasn't meant to be. You stepped out, but when you faced resistance, you turned back. But what if the failure was just a part of the process? What if that setback was actually a setup for something greater? What if the lesson you learned in failure is the very thing that will make you successful in the future? It's time to shift your mindset. Stop seeing failure as a reason to quit and start seeing it as proof that you are growing. No one reaches greatness without failing along the way. The key is to fail forward, to use every mistake as a stepping stone towards success. So what if you fail? So what if it doesn't work the first time? So what if people doubt you? Get back up. Try again. Learn, adjust, and keep moving forward, because in the end, the only way to truly fail is to stop trying. Keep going. Take the risk. Take the chance. The greatest regrets in life are not from the risks we took and failed, but from the chances we never took at all. When people reach the end of their journey, they do not look back and regret trying. They regret the opportunities they let pass by, the dreams they never pursued, the moments they played it safe when they should have stepped out in faith. It is not failure that haunts people, it is the what ifs. What if I had started that business? What if I had written that book? What if I had stepped out when I had the chance? Life is too short to live in fear. Too short to stay in the comfort zone. Too short to keep waiting for the perfect moment. The truth is, there will never be a perfect moment. There will always be uncertainty, always be challenges, always be reasons to wait. But waiting does not bring results, taking action does. Those who succeed in life are not the ones who had no doubts. They are the ones who acted in spite of their doubts. Look at the story of the Israelites. They stood at the edge of the promised land, but because of fear, they refused to move forward. They saw the giants, they saw the obstacles, and instead of stepping into their destiny, they retreated. And as a result, an entire generation wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, wasting time, wasting potential, living in regret. That is what happens when we let fear make our decisions. We stay in the same place, watching opportunities pass by, knowing deep inside that we were meant for more. But then there were Joshua and Caleb, two men who saw the same obstacles, but with a different mindset. They said, yes, there are giants, but we are well able to take the land. They understood that playing it safe would cost them everything. They understood that if they did not step forward, they would miss out on what God had for them. And because they had the courage to move, they inherited what others lost. The same applies to you. What if you are standing at the edge of your breakthrough, but fear is holding you back? What if the opportunity you've been praying for is right in front of you, but you keep waiting for more certainty? What if God has already given you everything you need, but you are afraid to step out? If you don't move, if you don't take the chance, you could spend years wondering, knowing you were meant for more, but never experiencing it. Some people spend their entire lives waiting for the right time, waiting for the right resources, waiting for the fear to go away. But the truth is, fear never fully goes away. The moment you step into something new, fear will always be present. But you must decide, will I let fear control me, or will I move forward anyway? There are people who look back at their lives and say, I wish I had taken that chance. I wish I had been bolder. I wish I had stepped out when I had the opportunity. But by then time has passed, doors have closed and opportunities have moved on. You do not want to reach the end of your journey and realize that you let fear keep you from living fully. You do not want to look back and see a life filled with wasted potential. God has placed something inside of you, a gift, a purpose, a calling. And the worst thing you can do is bury it. The world is waiting for what you carry. But if you refuse to step out, if you refuse to take the risk, you rob not only yourself, but also those who could have been impacted by your obedience. No one ever accomplished anything great by staying where it was safe. The greatest leaders, the greatest inventors, the greatest pioneers all had to take risks. They all had to make decisions that others were too afraid to make. They all had to choose courage over comfort. And because they did, they changed history. What about you? What will your story be? Will you be the person who let fear dictate your life? Or will you be the person who stepped out in faith? Will you be the one who looks back with regret? Or the one who looks back with gratitude, knowing you gave it everything? The time is now, not tomorrow, not next year, not when you feel more ready. Now, your future is waiting, but it requires you to act. It requires you to take the step, to take the risk, to take the chance. Because in the end, it is not the risks you took that you will regret. It is the ones you never had the courage to take. Life is not meant to be lived in hesitation. Every great achievement, every breakthrough, every moment of transformation begins with a decision to take a chance. If you wait for everything to be perfect, you will wait forever. If you let fear decide for you, you will always stay where you are. But if you dare to step out, if you dare to trust that what God has placed inside of you is enough, you will discover a life greater than you ever imagined. You were not created to live in regret. You were not designed to settle for less than your potential. You have a purpose, a calling, and a destiny waiting for you, but you must take the first step. Even if you fail, even if you stumble, even if things don't go as planned, remember that failure is not the end. It is just part of the process. So go forward with courage. Leave behind doubt. Step out of comfort. Stop waiting and start moving. Because your future is not in your past, it is in the risk you take today. May you walk boldly into your calling. May you trust that every step of faith brings you closer to your purpose. And may you never look back with regret, knowing you gave life everything you had. Good luck and thank you